In Education 225, we read the book Tongue-Tied, edited by Otto Santa Ana. It is a collection of short stories and poems about the lives of multilingual children in public education. The voices of English language learners shine through in this collection of short stories and poems. We hear of their many life-changing stories. One of the themes that is pertinent is shame and embarrassment. We are going to journey through 4 essays that fit under this umbrella theme of shame and embarrassment. In Maria Mazzato Guillen's poem called Learning Silence, she describes her experience as an English language learner in 1st grade. I try to be good. I try to be quiet. I hope Miss Barton will not curl her lip when she looks at me. I would gladly turn into Jane if some magic could transform me, make me blonde and cute instead of sad and serious and scared, with my sausage curls, my huge terrified eyes, my long nose, my dark olive-toned skin, the harsh, cheap cotton of my clothes. Before Maria even enters 1st grade, she has been systemized to feel afraid of school. She believes that the more invisible she can make herself, the better it is for her and the teacher, considering that she feels as though the teacher dislikes her. She finds escape in books like Dick and Jane. These books lead her to believe that happy children are those that are white with blonde curls, a dog, and a big white house. She believes that perfectionism only exists in this life. Her romanticism of the Anglo-Saxon culture led her to shame herself and her own heritage. She even mentions the prospect of adopting the identity of Jane only to please her teacher and find satisfaction in her own self-esteem. She also makes mention of the shame that she feels towards her physical appearance, her sad face, sausage curls, terrified eyes, long nose, and olive-toned skin. As an English language learner, Maria felt ashamed of her culture because it was not celebrated in her school environment. Another poem following the theme of shame and embarrassment is Elena by Pat Mora. Listen closely to this excerpt as she describes her experience of being a mom to children, experiencing life in an American school, which in turn has affected her own self-esteem. I'm 40, embarrassed at mispronouncing words, embarrassed at the laughter of my children, the grocer, the mailman. Sometimes I take my English book and lock myself in the bathroom, say the thick words softly, for if I stop trying, I will be deaf when my children need my help. At the beginning, she reminisces on a time where all of her family spoke only Spanish at home. The Spanish language brought happiness to the home, which consisted of jokes and songs. That happiness ended once they moved to America from Mexico. She then fast forwards to the present time when her children are now attending American high schools. Instead of speaking Spanish in the home, it is now filled with the English language, one of which she doesn't understand. As they converse in English, she describes the feeling of being dumb and alone. She strives to be a part of the American culture that her children are now a part of, so she purchases a book to learn English. She says that she is embarrassed to mispronounce words, the laughter of her children, the grocer, and the mailman. She tries to learn English her most because she won't be able to speak English. She refers to this as being deaf to their voices. In Education 225, we learn that it is important to foster care and appreciation for our students' culture, and that includes their language. It's unclear from the poem if her children were appreciated for their own culture, but it seems as though they have forgotten the importance of their native tongue. We need to make sure that students are taught English, but not as a replacement for their identity. This mom should feel a part of her children, even though they have learned English. It might even be helpful for schools to provide English programs for parents. The English language led to shame and embarrassment for the mom of immigrant children.
Another excerpt from Tongue-Tied, in which a speaker of a foreign language is embarrassed to speak English, is taken from Luis Rodriguez's autobiography called Always Running. In this passage, we hear the heartbreaking story of a boy who is deprived of his human right to learn. Luis explains that his experience in American schools is far from pleasant. There are many reasons why Luis's academic life does not go well. The main one being that he has a horrible teacher who sees him as a burden. Rather than adjusting and welcoming him, she complains about and excludes him. Because his teacher is neither patient nor flexible, Luis gets put in a different classroom, this time with a teacher who appears nicer. However, she sends him to the corner to play with blocks, making him the outcast. This is even worse than English immersion, because at least there children get to interact with their classmates. But instead of helping him through the challenge of not only being the new kid, but also being the one who does not speak English, the teachers do absolutely nothing for him. They only deny him the opportunity to learn from his peers. Luis goes on to explain that the fear of screwing up while attempting to speak English prevents him from even asking questions. Not only is asking questions essential for our human growth and development, but it is also necessary when requesting permission. Even something like asking to go to the bathroom, which seems so simple, becomes a big deal when one cannot communicate. We see the consequence of this fear when Luis soils himself in the classroom. This is probably one of Luis's most embarrassing moments. Though the passage does not end on a positive note, we know that Luis goes on to eventually achieve greatness. He becomes a writer. I bet his first teachers never thought he would one day be so successful. I am sure Luis goes on to explain how he overcomes racial injustice in his autobiography. That might be a great summer read for all of us future ESL teachers, an entire book about one man's stumbles and accomplishments. But what makes his success story such a special one? The fact that he went into school knowing no English at all. This teaches us that we cannot underestimate nor hold preconceived notions about our students. If we offer them a safe environment and community with loving schoolmates, we will see our students' true abilities and skills become manifest. The last poem dealing with shame that we will examine is titled Cut Into Me. This poem, written by Carol Yazzie Shaw, takes us into the mind of a young English language learner who feels lonely, cut up, fearful, beaten, dirty, and shameful. Why would a 5-year-old girl feel this way? And to whom is she writing this poem? Well, to answer these questions, we can speculate that she is speaking to white people who hate her for her differences. Rather than celebrating diversity, some people seek to eradicate it. Some people feel offended when hearing someone speak any language besides English. This poem is written to those people, to show them the effect of mistreating non-whites. When someone is told that their culture is worthless and that they cannot speak their native language, they are being told that their whole identity is valueless and that they need to conform to the American way of life. The last line of this poem, I don't know who I am, really points out how difficult of a struggle ELLs face. Being an English language learner is more than just not being able to understand words. Being an ELL means being the minority. It means overcoming challenges and stereotypes that the majority will never understand. It means struggling with feelings of confusion, anxiety, and loneliness. What we can learn from this poem is to empower our students. We, unfortunately, cannot protect them from all the ugly, racist, and hateful words they will hear throughout their lives. But what we can do is teach them to love themselves for who they are, to ignore all the ignorant people they will encounter. If we can help our students develop self-esteem, no one can break them down. As is evident through the exploration of these 4 pieces taken from Tongue-Tied, ELLs, to say the least, do not have it easy. But as we have learned this semester in Ed 225, we must remind people that everyone deserves to be educated and to enjoy their educational experiences. But these ideas become impossible when teachers do not care for their students as individuals. As Dr. Vallone has told us all semester long, we need passion in this field. We must be advocates. We must let others know that ELLs are just as valuable as native English speakers. We now know that some people will challenge us in our endeavors to provide ELLs with justice, but we cannot let the oppressors quiet our voices. We have something important to say, that they, the students, have a lot to say and a lot to teach.